because then after going on antidepressants, I need like some heroin to calm me down. Anyway, it's a whole big
Live on Facebook.
Perfect note to start our day on, because as usual, Facebook has taken me to my feed after going live. So now I have to go browse to the feed so I can share it in the group. And here we go. This is the usual Friday morning zaniness with Zoom and Facebook Live. Let's go to
Linda
my
says
page.
she's on her way right now.
Linda is on her way. What's this in the Q&A? If Godzilla was Excel and King Kong was Smartsheet, who would win the battle? You know, it just depends on what you're trying to do.
Fool the world, of course.
Right?
Hey, Seth, did you ever use VisiCalc or Multiplan back in the day?
VisiCalc was a little bit before my time, but I did use Lotus for DOS. That was my first spreadsheet.
Yeah, we had, when I was at WAMU, we had an Apple II, and VisiCalc was the reason we got the Apple II. So I used to do reports on, rather than do manual spreadsheets, I used the VisiCalc.
It's funny you mentioned VisiCalc. I'm going to show you because it's in the same folder where the file is that I want to work on today. I have a screenshot of what VisiCalc looked like. It was because that was the original spreadsheet created by a Harvard professor, I think it was.
Something like that. It was from
like
the
a professor of engineering, and he wanted to create something that would make it easy to run their big complex calculations, pulling data from different places. All right, let me get this shared in the group now.
I used to do this one report on like a 32-column spreadsheet, and at year end they were making so many changes I was creating holes in my spreadsheet by having to erase so much that I finally put it on the computer.
All right, so now I'm officially posting in the group. So that literally took about 3 minutes to complete the process of going live. And I only know that because I had my timer going for my French press. And when I started the process, it was on 3 minutes, and it's now completed the entire 5-minute process, so I can now make my coffee.
Kind of like
with you.
I should have called this coffee and spreadsheets.
I want to see how much is left after the show's done.
Oh, it'll be gone. I will drink all of this.
My pot never lasts that long.
The French press fills 2 of these. As you can see, this is quite a large mug. And then here's the part where if Larry was with us, he would be privately chatting me, warning me about the fat and calorie content here.
That's not good.
What?
That's bad stuff.
It's good. It tastes good. It makes the coffee taste wonderful.
No.
Ready? Wait, let me test it.
What about the sugar?
Oh, let me test mine with regular cream.
I think it needs a little more. All right.
That's a big coffee mug.
It is a big coffee mug.
Yeah.
I don't mess around. It's from a client. It's from a client who, by the way, just messaged me in Slack minutes ago saying, oh, by the way, we're reopening our restaurant tomorrow, and I need a new QuickBooks company file set up today so I can point the POS and banking system and a bank account to it. I'm like, I actually, it's because it's been like one of those mornings already. My response was, are you effing kidding me? I actually wrote that, but I didn't say F. I actually spelled the word out. And I said, I will do it today, but it may not happen until around midnight because that's the kind of day I have ahead of me. And I've got no response so far because this guy has a habit of doing these kind of things to me. He's lucky I actually love him. Otherwise, I'd fire him.
You charge him a PETA premium?
I should actually, but this actually, I normally cover the cost of QuickBooks. I'm not paying for this one. I'm going to start billing him. I'm going to start doing that more, I think, is start actually billing the clients to reimburse me for QuickBooks Online, especially with the way Intuit is increasing fees and doing what they're doing and forcing people. I mean, I know we're talking about Excel today, but I'm going to go on this quick rant because I was working with a client yesterday who's a real estate developer. So he buys lots. And he buys these big lots, cheap land, and he puts mobile homes on them and then rents them out. This is in Texas. And so his balance sheet is quite large because for each lot and mobile home, we have an asset for the original cost and another asset for the improvements. So he's already over his 250 account limit, which means he's grandfathered in on this plan. They're not going to force him to upgrade, but he can't add any more. If he buys another property, he's screwed. So I was literally working with him yesterday on seeing where we can merge. And like one thing we did, and this is a good tip, I think, for anybody else who runs into this, because you will, he had separate accumulated depreciation asset accounts for each property. Also, it makes it easier to track, and especially when a property is sold, it makes it easier for me to identify the depreciation recapture that has to be factored into the basis and so on, right? So I said if we go through each of the transactions in the entire history and make sure that each one is assigned to a customer, which they probably already are, then we could shrink that down to a single accumulated depreciation account, drill in total by customer, and now we will be able to get the details we want. It'll take a little extra work to get it, but at least that's how we have to. Now, this is what I'm spending my time doing. Instead of adding real value to my client, I have to do this stuff to try and make sure that he doesn't get forced to spend $150 a month for QuickBooks just because he's got a lot of assets that he needs to manage on his balance sheet.
How does he track his accumulated depreciation? Does he not have a program for that?
No, he gets the entries from the CPA, and he books it each year, just like at year end when you book your depreciation entries. But he breaks it out by property so that it's really easy to track everything.
Yeah, but it's already tracked in the depreciation program.
It's tracked in the tax software. There is no depreciation program per se.
The tax software.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So
it's the tax return it's the people who are preparing the tax return that give him those entries, which he posts. Right? Because for that part, I always just do it on the tax basis. There's no need of doing it, straight line or any other way. I might as well just do it on the tax basis because for that piece, at the end of the day, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Plus, he's probably not issuing public financial statements anyway. So.
No, definitely not, and he never will. It would be the first I've ever heard of a publicly traded mobile home park rental company.
That's good.
The next big thing.
You know what? Maybe he could somehow become like the Airbnb of mobile home. Maybe that's an idea. Is for like an Airbnb for mobile home rentals. You just rent an RV somewhere. Actually, they do have something like that. I have a friend. We went on a camping trip near the end of last year, and there was an app or service that he used to actually rent an RV to take up to the campsite with him.
Oh, yeah.
And it was somebody else's RV that they just didn't need it that week, so they rented it to him. And it was like this nice, beautiful RV. I mean, some of these RVs, if you look, are actually nicer than our homes.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
And this thing was beautiful, and it was like $1,000 for a week. Very worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Cheaper than a hotel.
It's almost like a timeshare.
Yeah.
So, Seth, we've been going through the same thing with all of our classes and accounts for taking and bringing it back down. And that's one of the areas where CDAT has been saving my rear. It's still taken me 2.5 hours per company minimum to transition all of our workflow away from how the classes were being used into accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And it sucks that it's 40 combined between classes and locations. You know what I've been meaning to check? Can you make a location inactive?
Yeah, I would think so.
I don't know if you can. It's one of those things I thought it, said it, and then I was like, let me not assume it. I should go check. I know you can make a class inactive, and I know you could easily merge classes. I haven't locations. The only ever thing I've done with locations is create them and then use them, right? I've never like merged them because what's funny? Speaking of that, I was playing around with projects for a client last week. You can't merge projects. He made the mistake of agreeing when he first turned on projects to convert a bunch of sub-customers to projects. And now we're trying to consolidate them because he kind of duplicated efforts in a few places on that. No way to merge them. I don't even think I saw an easy way to make them inactive.
You can actually turn them off there's a drop.
But we don't want to turn them off. We want to keep them on because we may want to use them, but we just want to turn certain ones that are in his projects list off.
Yeah. So under projects, you can choose whether they're completed, canceled, or like in progress, basically. And then really, when it comes to like trying to merge things together, that is an absolute pain in the rear. You would basically have to go in and like reassign. reassign the different transactions to the proper project. There's a way that you can create a new.
In other words, it can be done, but it's a pain in the ass.
Yes, that's just
Right? I mean, come on. This is not what I want to spend my time doing. I have better stuff to do with my clients than this. It's so frustrating. And I'm sorry, Intuit. I love you. You've been very good to me. But sometimes the things you guys do make me shake my head, make me SMH.
Mm-hmm. True.
How's that for a face? All right, let's talk about Excel, since that's what we're here to do. Wait, Sarah says, but if you reduce the list, doesn't that become the new grandfathered limit? No, if you reduce the list below 250, then you're in the clear to create more. You have to get it under 250, and if you make things inactive, they don't count towards the limit. Sarah says she just ran out of coffee. She might have to make an extra cup. And Linda says, wake up, Sarah. All right, let's talk about Excel. Who wants to see VisiCalc? VisiCalc is hilarious. All right, wait. If Godzilla and Excel were Godzilla was Excel and King Kong with Smartsheet, who would win the battle? I'm going to go with King Kong and Smartsheet.
Did you ever use Visiplot?
Never heard of it.
It was a graphing program. I used to do it when I was doing the board of director statements, and we'd have to print it out and then cut it out and tape it onto a piece of paper, and then Xerox it X number of times to get the dark lines out. But yeah, nice. It was the plotting program. It was the graphing program. It was a separate program called Visiplot.
Visiplot. All right. All right. My Windows Explorer is not playing nicely. Here we go. I am browsing to my files. I'm actually digging into my course files for my Microsoft Excel courses. I think if I go into the basics, might be here. A lot of missing people today. Like, we don't have Greg, who's usually here. Makes me sad. I hope I didn't lose my VisiCalc screenshot. It's like critical. Oh, here it is. Images. There we go. Pay attention, Seth. It might also help if I had my reading glasses on. Yeah, here we go. This is hilarious. So this is the first spreadsheet, what it looked like. Matthew, where'd you go? Matthew left us. Here's a screenshot of VisiCalc. This is what it looked like.
Yep, that's right.
And Lotus for DOS wasn't much different than this. It looked pretty much just like this.
There's a lot of apps that are still looking like that.
Not vendor sync, though.
No. We have 3 colors.
You have amber? I had a DOS-based computer where I had an amber monitor instead of the green. I thought it was so cool because I had a different color than what everybody else had.
Well, the original compact luggables had like a 9-inch screen that was orange. That's
awesome. By the way, if you ever want to look really smart, just add one of these in as an image on your spreadsheet. I did that in my course. I stuck this in, and it means nothing. It looks really, it's a binomial theorem. So go figure. Just stick that on your spreadsheet. You'll look brilliant.
That says Godzilla would win.
Who said Godzilla would win?
That's what that formula means.
No. King Kong would definitely win.
We'll find out soon. Coming to theaters near you.
All right. Let's see. What do we want to start with? Let me go into my Santa Monica College stuff. Actually, no, I know what we want. Here it is. So this is a sample database I downloaded from a website that has sample databases, funny enough. Right? So this is a CSV file. This is a fun one to play with that I play with in my Excel courses. So first I'm going to save it as an Excel spreadsheet. And just make sure I'm not overwriting something. Here, we'll just do it like that, but we'll put today's date on it. So I know today was the day we messed with this one. 0308.
Lisa, I'm always impressed when you're on these things because it's super early where you're at and out in.
That's true, huh?
Right?
Yeah, it's like 5 a.m. there.
Yeah. Wow.
5:20. She's 3 hours behind me. Us.
Oh, who else is upset about the fact it's daylight savings time changing this weekend?
Me.
Wait, spring forward, fall back. So we're going back. We get an extra hour. Why would you be upset?
No, spring forward.
We're going
it's
forward.
spring. We're going forward. I'm not that smart. See, that's why I need you guys. Lisa says it's 2 hours right now. I said it out loud too. I'm like, oh, spring forward, fall back. We're falling back. And I'm just all screwed up. Like, you know how sometimes we lose track of the day of the week? I lose track of the season.
Yeah.
I keep thinking it's fall, probably because of the cold weather.
Yeah, it seems like fall.
You're good in other ways.
I'm really not.
How many people have had employees that on Monday will still show up? Like, okay, so this one obviously we're going forward, but like on the other one, fall, they'll still show up an hour late on Monday or Tuesday, right, when the time changes, which really doesn't make sense because if it always changes Saturday night, Sunday morning, and in the fall, if it's going backwards, you actually get an extra hour, but they show up an hour late. It's like, really, guys? Like,
Matthew,
no.
when I was drinking, any excuse to stay out later drinking on a Saturday night that led into my Sunday morning hangover, which led into my need to drink Sunday night to cure the hangover, which led into being late Monday morning, no matter what. I would just use the time as an excuse. By the way, if you want to watch something really funny, I always think of this, of course, during daylight savings time. If you Google daylight savings trailer, there's this video that's done. It's like a movie trailer about daylight savings time that's hilarious. So do that. All right, let's get back to business. Microsoft Excel. So the reason you can't really compare Excel to Smartsheet, by the way, is because with a lot of overlap, there's different animals, right? Like Excel will definitely win on formulas, no question. Smartsheet has formulas, a lot of them similar to the way Excel works, but not nearly as robust or powerful as what you have in Excel for writing formulas, right? But Smartsheet has a lot of robust features that Excel doesn't have. You know, sure, Excel has commenting, but Smartsheet's ability to log a thread of comments alongside a row, much better than Excel, right? In Excel, I can insert comments here and notes. I don't know when Excel added notes. Google Sheets has had notes since day one. They're similar to comments, right?
They don't even pop up very well. Like you have to see the little thing, the indicator in the small top corner of the cell, and it's like, meh.
Okay, and so the comments, so they've changed this around actually, and this is just like Google Sheets. So a comment is meant to be a thread for something that needs to be resolved. So if you and I are collaborating, I write a comment and I say, Matthew, please do all of my work for me.
Done.
And Matthew comes in and he comments, he'll comment back and say, okay, done. And then you can come over here and mark it resolved, or you can delete the thread. See, Google has a thing where you can actually mark it resolved. Anyway, by contrast, a note is just this. A note is more like a sticky note. Of course, if you do want to just see them, you can go into your view menu and you can, or maybe it's review, here, notes, and you can just show all notes, right? And then you can organize these so they don't kind of get in each other's way. So the notes is one thing. The comment is different. So here you can say show comments. And the comments show up on the side in almost like a chat-like thread, right? So anyway, Smartsheet's notes and comments thing, I think, much more powerful, much more betterer. By the way, you can copy comments, right? If I copy the cell, I can go to paste special and paste comments. That's handy.
Hey, Seth, Lisa wants to know how you move the note.
Oh, you just move your mouse over it. And you just move your mouse over it. If you go over the edge, you'll see your mouse shape change to a little four-prong thing, and then just click and drag it.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Oh, you can do all kinds of things. You can do formatting in the note, too. You can go into the note on your home tab. It's limited, but I can change the font. I can bold and italicize and underline stuff. You can't change the font color within the note. You can change the font color of everything in the note, I believe. No, you can't actually do that. I take that back. And then, of course, we can delete the note, which is exactly what I want to do. And I can delete the comment. Because today we're not talking about notes and comments. We're talking about tables. Tables!
Yay! You know, Excel is probably the tool I use, besides Zoom, the tool I use the most as an accountant.
I use it a lot. I don't know if it's the tool I use the most. These days I'm using it a lot because I'm working on projects that, you know, the nature of which are using Excel a lot, right? Like I showed everybody in our 97 Up group yesterday, the project I'm working on, which was really cool, right?
I missed that, didn't I? I had to jump off early.
You did. I'll get the replay up there so you can watch it today. It's a really cool, it was cool that I could show it because there's no client confidential information. Oh. It's a project I'm working on to build a template to do a pro forma rental for like an $80 million commercial real estate portfolio.
Wow.
And so it's built out completely dynamic so they can add properties to the scheduled properties with all the information, and pretty much everything else just looks things up based on property number, from the transaction register for each property to the effective interest amortization schedule. Being able to choose dynamically, you know, you have 2 rates associated with each property, one for interest only, one for amortized interest. And so you can basically look at different scenarios and see what the impact is on everything. It's very cool. And this is why I like Excel still better than a lot of the other forecasting tools that are out there, even for much simpler stuff than what I'm doing here. Because with Excel, the trick, of course, is you have to know how to use Excel, right? That's always the caveat. But if you know your stuff in Excel really well, you can do some really powerful stuff, and you have all the flexibility of being able to create pretty much whatever you can conceive. Right? You're not limited by some app and some app designers' ideas of what you might need to do for a client. You can basically put it on the table for the client to say, tell me what you want, and you can go to work and create it for them. Right? And you can make it really dynamic. A lot of people say, oh, well, Excel, there's errors in formulas. If there's errors in formulas, it's because you don't know how to write formulas, right? I was watching a thread like a year or so ago from some accountants about this, and that was their claim about why you shouldn't use spreadsheets. Is, you know, it was something like, are you tired of spreadsheets with broken formulas and links and whatever? And it's like, well, if that stuff's happening, it's because you suck at Excel. You know,
the hard part with Excel, or at least trying to show it, is no matter, I think that no matter how great of a teacher you could be with Excel, it is almost impossible to learn it until you're putting your own hands into it.
You have to have a use case, for sure. There has to be a use case, something that you want to learn how to go and create, right? Yeah. Because it's sort of like, for those who know about Photoshop, I don't really know anything about Photoshop, but I know enough to know that Photoshop, like Excel, is the kind of thing that can do so many different things that if you don't know what it is exactly that you want to do with it, you'll never learn it. What is Sarah saying in the chat? Oh my God, wasn't that Zebra or something like that? Who wrote that song? Tell me what you want. What?
The Spice Girls. The moment you said that.
Tell me what you want. See, I was thinking, tell me what you want. There's like an old metal kind of rock band called Zebra back in the 80s that had a song called Tell Me What You Want.
Yeah, no, I went Spice Girls route on you.
And I just sang public and live, so.
Look at that. Inspiration.
By the way, cup number 2 down the hatch.
Okay.
All right. So who wants to see tables? I feel like we can screw around today because there's a very light audience, and it's my own fault because I didn't post this up until like late last night. What happened here? Debbie Boyle Fulton says, Linda's right, and I've had all my employees except one show up late the same day. That was back to your comments, Matthew, about daylight savings and people coming late. Sarah says, now I have a use case. It's getting easier. Can you make a drop-down quick fill like we can in Smartsheet? You absolutely can make a drop-down in Excel very easily. In fact, here, let's focus on my screen. I'll show you how to do that really quickly. So let's say I was going to create a form here where I wanted to pick a name from the list here. All right, so first let's create the table. All right. So I'm going to select the whole range. Control T is in table. Enter. Done. Poof. You're now a table. Okay. Now what I want to do, Matthew, show me again how I take the full name here and turn it into a named range. There was a way you showed us that yesterday.
Yeah, so if you basically highlight the entire table, including the top header rows.
All right.
Control Shift End, I believe, right? We'll do it all, or Control Shift.
Control Shift right, and then Control Shift down selects everything.
Now go up to Formulas.
Formulas.
And you're going to have Create from Selection.
Create from Selection. Oh, that's right. And then top row, no left column.
You got it.
Yay. So now what I can do, because now full name has a name, I think. Let's go here to Name Manager. Yeah, full underscore name. Okay, great. So now let's go over to sheet 1. And let's say I want to create a drop down here that pulls from the full name. We go to Data, and we want Validation, which is under here somewhere.
Home column, actually.
No, Validation's in Data for sure. That's where I always go.
You're right.
Here it is, Data Validation. Okay. I never remember what these symbols mean on my smaller screen. So now we want to allow from a list, okay? And the source, I'm going to use my paste names function, which is function F3. And I choose full name because I've now defined that part of that table as a range called full name. Okay. Okay. Poof, I now have a drop down. And so now watch how cool this gets. So now I have a drop down, and let's say I just want their phone number, right? So this is going to be name and phone number. Now I just do a quick VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP. We're looking for that, comma. Where am I looking for it? I can also paste the name, and no, I need the table, right? So what's the table name? I have to check that.
You can actually do the full name there.
Actually, it has to start, no, because I need it to be a range. It can't just be full name. It has to be full name over to the first phone number, right?
You can name that also.
So I can name this range. But all right, here, let's write the formula simply first. So equals VLOOKUP. I'm looking for whatever name is to my left here, comma. Where am I looking for it? That's the next part after the first comma is where am I looking for it? The first column in the range has to be where that lookup value is going to be found, right? So in this case, full name. So Control Shift down arrow selects the whole range down from, if you notice, let me back up. Control Home takes me home. I'm going to start on the first name, James Butt. Control Shift down arrow selects everything all the way down. If you look carefully, you can see the highlighted, sort of dotted range indicating what's selected. And then no control, just Shift right arrow, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm counting the columns that I went to the right because now I need to pull from the 8th column, right? So comma 8, right? Because that's the next piece. So it's the formula is what am I looking for? Where am I looking for it? And then what do I want to pull once I find a match? And what column number? So column number 8, comma, false means only give me a result if you find an exact match, right? Whereas true here would say if you find an approximate match, that's okay, I'll take it. And boom. So now I can go here and change my drop down to any name in the list. And of course, it gives me my phone number. Right?
Really smart.
Pretty cool. Okay, but now let's see what else we can do with this data now that it's a table. One of my favorite things to do is I like to make fun of people with AOL email addresses, right? So I'm going to go to the email column, and when I turned on the table, it turned on my filters, right? So filters are a way of really using this as a database to query the data. So if I want to make fun of all the people with AOL addresses, I click the filter drop down on the email and go into the search and type AOL.com. Boom. Here's all the people with AOL email addresses. Pretty neat, right? And then I can clear that filter by clicking the drop down again and choosing clear filter from email. Now this is good, but this table has contact information. It doesn't have financial information, so there's only so much you can do with it, but still some pretty cool stuff, right? I can quickly chisel this down, for example, to people living in the state of California, and maybe I want people in the city of Los Angeles, right? And what I'm showing you here isn't really a table function as much as it's just a filters function, right? It's just that the use of the table turns on the filters and gives you quick, easy access to it. Oh, so Sarah wanted to know not about a drop-down specifically, but a quick fill. So no, there's no quick fill on the Excel drop-downs, not easily anyway. Oops, somebody just joined us. I forgot to turn off the enter exit chime. So let's look at some.
What quick fill is she talking about, though?
So you know how kind of like in these filters where I can type the search and it'll do a quick fill and bring up a result rather than having to scroll the list.
Okay.
Kind of like how Airtable does. Right, you know, Airtable, anytime I click any kind of drop down, there's a search box where I can type in what I'm looking for instead of having to scroll through the whole list.
One of the other uses of quick fill, like I will usually add an extra column at the very beginning, my ID column, and if you have the numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, you can quick fill and it'll just fill in the rest all the way down. That's just an example. Because then
the same thing happens if you insert a column with a.
No, I think you guys are talking about something else. You're talking about a different feature of Excel where I can do a numbered list like this. 1, 2, 3, right? And I can, once I establish the pattern, I can do that quick fill.
No. Go to the data sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the data sheet.
I'm on the data sheet.
No,
this data sheet, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And now insert a column between last name and full name. And now type in equals concatenate and do the first and last name.
Oh, well, yeah, it'll copy the formula down for you instantly.
Copy the formula all the way down.
Again, not what Sarah's talking about, though. What Sarah's talking about is the ability to, let's go back to this use case where I created this drop-down. She wants to be able to come into a drop-down like this and type in a name to search for rather than having to scroll the whole list.
Autocomplete, you mean. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that works better on Excel Online. It's hard to get it to work great.
Yep. But by the way, just so you know, because there's a few different sort of quick fill and flash fill things that Excel can do. Notice if I establish a pattern here, 369, and then I use my fill command, it follows suit. It knows what to do. Generally speaking, I only need 3 to establish a pattern, then Excel can figure out what to do with it from there, which is pretty cool. I learned that because, you know, I've had a formula that I've always written, a date-based formula, to create a timeline going across that's dynamic. But if you want to quickly get a timeline without having to write a formula, and you want it to always be the first of the month, I can do like 1/1/19, 2/1/19. I think 2 is going to be enough here to establish the pattern. And it follows suit. As I fill across, it just creates it for the first of each month. It knows what I need.
That's cool.
Very cool. Let's look at some financial data. And I'm going to combine a few moves here, one of which, Matthew, you recently taught me. Something that I'm always kind of screaming for, but Matthew, I think you actually gave me a solution here that's going to work in a lot of cases. So we're going to go into the QuickBooks Online test drive. I did this just the other day because I had somebody come to me who needed 1099s done for a company that had been sort of retired, but he took the backups from QuickBooks Online. Actually, I had done it for him, which included in which is the General Ledger Detail Report. And so I was able to pull that GL Detail Report and do what I'm about to show you with it. I'm just going to do it here in the sample file. Let's just look for General. All right, and then what I want is I'm going to do this for all dates. Don't do all dates on this report if you have a file with a lot of history. I'm only doing that because it's a sample file. You will crash Chrome.
Yep.
A lot of times you have to do it year over year, and I've had files that were so big I had to do this quarter over quarter. All right. So let's get into this. So one of my challenges here is I want to get this into a flat file, right? Which means Hold on, let's wait for Excel to finish working, which means I need checking alongside each transaction because I want this column to become a database-like column that shows me what account, whose data it is I'm looking at, right? So once Matthew showed me this, it changed my life, literally. He became even my better best friend or something like that. So I'm going to click my scroll bar on the right to quickly get all the way to the bottom. Right, and we're going to go shift-click so that I've got everything highlighted all the way down to the bottom. I don't really care about the totals.
First?
What?
What if you made it a table first?
I don't know that that matters, does it?
Yeah, it makes it easier finding the ranges, but same concept.
Okay. And then I'm just going to scroll back up here while that range is selected just to be sure. So equals up arrow means make the cell that I'm in, which is A7, equal to whatever's above it. And that's going to follow suit all the way down. Oh, but first I have to go to just the blanks, right? Because if I did that now, everything would say checking, right? So I want it to only go to the blank ranges. So I have to go to special. So function F5 is my go-to command. And then I choose special. It's very special. And blanks. This is what Matthew taught me. It changed my life that day. Click OK. Now equals up arrow. And before I do that, just to show you, see what it did? It unselected effectively everything that had something in it. So now when I do this command, savings is going to copy down to these two. Accounts receivable is going to copy down to everything below it by just doing equals up arrow. And then control, holding down the control key while you hit enter, does to the entire selection whatever you're doing in the current cell. Control enter, right? And so the reason this came up in 97 and up was I had been creating macros to do this, but even the macros don't get it done as quickly as this, right? Now I have it nicely copied. Now I definitely want a table, but first let's do a couple of other cleanup things. I'm selecting the entire sheet by clicking the little thing with the down pointing arrow between column A and row 1. That selects the entire sheet. And I want to just unmerge anything that's merged. I want to get rid of all that. I want to turn this into a true flat database. I don't think I have any wrap text, but just in case, you click it and click it again.
So
Okay.
I don't have a function key on my keyboard.
F5. It's the F5 key. On my keyboard, I need to hit function to access the F keys because otherwise they mean other things.
Gotcha.
So this column is going to become the account, right? And then I'm going to just paste the formatting like that. I don't need this first line, but now what I wanted, now I got to harden this. See, what happened was I deleted the first row here, and this stuff was dependent on it. So we got to turn these formulas that's saying make it equal to whatever's above. We got to harden those into just values. So there's a little bit of cleanup to do on this. Really easy to do. And then but first I want to make Matthew really happy. I'm going to turn this into a table.
Thank you.
And just for, to make it a little different, I'm going to change the color scheme of my table because I'm getting tired of the same old blue. This is a different shade of blue. So now we're going to highlight everything in this column because there's a lot of stuff in here that's formula-based insofar as being equal to whatever's above it. And we want to change that. We want to harden these to their values. So with the whole range selected, I'm going to press Control-C, which is just to copy it. And I'm going to paste the values of these cells right back onto themselves. So while I've got that range selected and I've pressed Control-C, I'm in cut, copy, paste mode is what it used to be called. Here in the status, it just says select destination and press Enter to choose paste. I can right-click anywhere on the range, paste special, values. Okay. Now there's no longer formulas in here. So I can get rid of that one right away. And the other thing is I want to get rid of all those rows that had totals. And the way to do that is to sort by something that doesn't have, that wouldn't exist in the row that has a total, which the date is a perfect place to do that. So let's sort by the date. And now I can go right to the bottom, and I'll have all this other stuff I can get rid of that I just don't need because I just want the raw data. And then I had this footer in there from the export from QuickBooks that I don't need either. Notice, by the way, and I was very impressed that Matthew didn't know this, I don't think, is that when I've scrolled down on a table, that where the table is situated at the very top row, notice the headers from my table now take over where the column references are. The letters are gone, and it now shows my headers here. That's another really cool feature of a table, so that I don't have to freeze panes or any of that. When I scroll down past where I can see the headers, it just throws them up into the columns for me, so I can always see sort of what planet I'm on.
If you go down one more cell beyond the table, does it switch back to A, B, C?
It does. Yep, once the table's out of view, it switches back.
Paid attention to that.
Yep. Now, what I want to do, notice some of these accounts have spaces in them. So I want to clean that up. All right, so let's sort by the account. And there's a really quick way to get rid of these ones with the extra spaces. I'm going to highlight, I'm going to go based on what lines up, right? And we're going to go data, text to columns. We were doing some of the stuff yesterday. I'll do fixed with, because then I can just tell it exactly where I want to split it up. And then I can say with this first column selected, don't import it. Boom, that gets rid of those extra spaces. Now I can do the same here. The keyboard shortcut for data text to column is Alt-D as in data, E as in the second letter in the word text. Alt-D-E gets me my text to columns quickly. Tap fix with, put my separator right in front of the data. Next, with the first column selected, do not import, and finish. And I think that's all we're going to need. I think everything else is pretty well lined up here. And sorting it by this first puts all the things that had spaces in the beginning on top, because that space is a null value that sorts before anything else. Now if I sort it, it'll be truly alphabetical by account. Right?
Very cool. Now, and part of the reason you took all the rows with the totals out, of course, is because when you're going to keep playing with the data, you want to get those values which out of the table, so it doesn't duplicate and misrepresent everything, right?
Exactly. That's a big part of it, because now that I'm here, because it took, and if I wasn't slowing down to explain, I'd have had this cleaned up, that you figure, in less than 2 minutes, right? You know, it's pretty quick to go through what I went through if I'm not slowing down to explain everything. Now that I've got it, this is what I need out of a general ledger, a flat file, because now what I can do is I can do reporting that no accounting software on the planet can do, which is a pivot table, right? So if I go over to my design tools, first of all, I love that you showed me this yesterday, Matthew. Before I even get into pivot tables, sticking with the original table itself, I was just doing it manually by writing a formula at the bottom, right? Because we have an amount. I really don't even need the balance column. The balance column is sort of irrelevant at this point. So I'm getting rid of that. Let's save it. Okay, but what I love is over here I can choose total row. And what that did is it stuck a row right at the bottom of the table, which will total the amount, right? But I can change this drop down, will help me change the function from sum to any of these other functions. I can say none, average, count numbers, maximum, minimum, sum, standard deviation, variance, and then there's even more functions I can access here.
And it's dynamic. So if you had it to sum and then you filtered by like the split by a certain account, it will only show you the sum of those things that are visible at that time.
Right. Right. So if you filter the list, that's a way to get subtotals, right? So if I want to see the sum of everything that's just in the checking account now, I can go into my split. My split is the target account in a transaction, remember. The account out here is the source account.
Good point.
So I might want to filter on this one for the checking.
In theory, shouldn't this be 0?
It should. I was thinking about that when it's especially when
those weird things in there that are negatives when they really should be positive, and positives when they really should.
Yeah, well, no, but that should actually work, because it should be seeing anything with a credit balance or a credit should be negative, and debit should be, no, yes, credit should be negative, debit should be positive, because that's how accounting works generally.
But I think that it boils down to the source document, the transaction type.
Yeah. Yeah, like a bill here, right? The account on the bill this is, if you think about this transaction debit and credit wise, it's a debit to the gas and electric expense and a credit to accounts payable. And that shows up here as a positive because we're looking from the source, right? And the source here is on the gas and electric account. So that's why your debits and credits won't necessarily balance perfectly.
But we could probably develop a lookup table that says, okay, if the transaction type is bill, then we leave it positive. The transaction type is whatever the other one is, then we make it a negative. We could play with it for a while, huh?
And remember that this bill is going to show up twice because here we're seeing it in the gas and electric account, but it's also going to show up in the accounts payable account, right?
Right, and that's why it should.
Right, that's why it should zero out because this should be offset by that. So let's, I'm trying to think of a quick way to sort this so we could see it very clearly. Let's try just sorting it by
accounts payable and look for PG&E.
No, but I want to get them next to each other.
Oh, sort by the name.
Yeah. So, or I'll filter it by name, actually.
Yeah, filter
it by PG&E. Okay, and I did just sort it by date. So here's the accounts payable, here's the gas and electric. And they're both showing up as positive. Really, one of these should be negative.
Yeah.
So it's, again, you could do some tweaking to fix that. But without even having to do any of that, we can go right to a pivot table now. So from within the Table Tools design, I can go to Summarize with Pivot Table. And so watch this trick. I can put the accounts here in the rows, the amount in the values. Let's make those look like pretty numbers. Pretty numbers. And let's put the names maybe above the accounts just for the heck of it to see what that looks like. Look at that. So now I can see Amy's Bird Sanctuary. Here's the accounts receivable. This is just the total of whatever her receivables activity came to during the period. Board of Equalization payable for her, so that's her sales taxes. Here's what came out of the checking account that's associated with her. And I can go down the list. And here's why I love pivot tables, because I can pivot on that and say, let's see what it looks like with the account first and then the name. Right? That's kind of cool.
The cool thing about doing the name first is it's a really good way to figure out what categories you would put different vendors under. So if you're rebuilding a company file, you could take their old data, do the expense by vendor, expense by vendor in a sense, and you would be able to see do they have multiple categories things are falling under, which it's showing here that's not as common. But if one's more common than the other, we use that when we're trying to create rules. We use that knowledge so we can actually create rules for stuff.
Right. The other thing I forgot to do, by the way, before I exported this, and this is why I actually do this a lot, is I usually will include a column here for the item information. Right. Because if I have the item information, now I can actually, when I get to the pivot table, let me just do it real quick because it'll actually kind of underscore how easy and quick this is to do. So I want to change columns. And I want the product or service in there. Might as well get the quantity of that while I'm there. All right, let's change the order. So I want that maybe right after the name. And then the quantity right before the amount and the balance and all that. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Let's break out debit and credit because that might solve our other problem, Greg. If I show the debits and credits separately, I didn't mean to check that or that. There shouldn't be any opening balances because I'm running this for all dates. So let's put debit and credit right before amount.
We can also just get rid of that balance column since we just deleted it anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Let's get the rate in there because we have the quantity and the other stuff. So quantity, rate, that's useful. All right, that's good enough for government work. Cup 2, done. I still got half a cup left in the French press. I love my French press.
Are you a coffee drinker,
What?
Matthew? No, you're not. Okay.
No.
Do you drink
Makes my
tea?
heart, I feel weird. I'll drink tea usually, like sometimes. I'm trying to drink more tea and less like soda.
Soda.
Soda?
Yeah,
Soda.
I'm if you check my blood type, it would come back Diet Dr. Pepper.
All right, I'm going to take these other files and close them. Yeah, sure, we can save that. Let's close that.
Bye, Katrina.
Bye, Katrina. All right, so let's export this to Excel, and I'm going to move fast here. I'm not going to slow down to explain stuff. I'm just going to run it because I want to show you how cool this is. It's just so cool.
So, Seth, while you're doing that, one of the best use cases for something like this, if you have to export data from a different accounting platform and they don't have a great way to do it, you have to rebuild stuff. Going to get that general ledger and literally pulling in every single column as possible, you're fundamentally getting all the information that you need to kind of reconstruct the data back into a different accounting platform. So if you use tables and pivot tables, it's a way to rebuild stuff before you put it back into QuickBooks or wherever you need to go.
Yeah. What he said. No, there's a lot. Again, for me, at the end of the day, it's the reporting, right? So here's going to be the account. And then, all right, Matthew, you said to get to the bottom of the range quickly, it's easier to do tables. But I still have to find the bottom of the range before I can turn it into a table. What am I missing?
Control-Shift-End.
What?
Control-Shift-End.
All right, let me try that. Control-Shift. And where the hell is my N key? There it is. Oh, that's cute. Okay, then Control-T.
Yep.
On it.
Get rid of that footer data too.
But then how do I quickly highlight just the checking except for the first row?
So because there's the blanks in there, that's the only difficulty. I would then go back to your trick where I would scroll down the side and get
I'm just going to do Shift Page Down.
Yes.
Shift Page Down is
go to the bottom and work your way, go back up to the home.
6 of one, half a dozen of another.
Well, I think mine's 5 of one.
So, and then I always still like to go back because I trust nothing and no one to make sure I've still got the right thing selected. Then F5, go to Special. Let's go to blanks. Okay, equals up arrow, Control Enter. Okay, now let's sort by date. Oh, first let's harden that, Control C. Alt ES is paste special. V for values. Okay. Oh, shut up. All right, Control Space Bar highlights the whole column. Control C. Paste values. Done. Data, sort by date. Get down to the bottom of that, all the way down to the end. Shift Space Bar, Control minus. Okay, sort by the account. Let's get rid of the extra spaces. Next to columns, fixed. Next. Done. Next. Don't import. Finish. Shift. Enter gets me down to the bottom of that range so I can quickly get to the next section. Alt-D-E for text to columns. Again, fixed. Next. Next. Don't import.
That's the cool thing with Excel. I've never done it that way. I always would go in and put 4 or 5 spaces and then find and replace them, then take away space and find and replace, then take away space. And
that seems like much more work.
I learned something new.
All whitey then. Now let's go do a pivot table, right? Because I've got it all flattened out. Everything's in here. Summarize with pivot table. Actually, I'm curious, Greg. Let's check something. This is for you, Greg. I do it all for you, Greg. Let's get the total row.
As well you should.
Let's see if we zero. See, we don't zero out here.
No, but we should zero out on the debits and credits.
Well, let's find out, right? Some. They should equal. They do. All right. Yeah, so this column, the amount column, isn't really pure, but clear our debits and credits match, right? Perfect. All right, anyway, let's go home. And let's go design, summarize with pivot table. Okay. And then this is my favorite thing to do in Excel when it comes to analyzing accounting data is I want to see the products and services that sold, and I want to see who bought them, right? And I want to see what they spent on them. So let's just use the amount in that case. All right, and then another thing I hate is when they put the subtotals at the top. So design, subtotals, show all subtotals at the bottom of the group. To me, that makes a lot more sense. Let's pick a prettier color palette for the pivot table here.
I wonder, is there a setting that you can make the subtotals go to the bottom? Because
No, at least not that I've seen. I look for it. I didn't see it, like to change the default.
Yeah.
Haven't found one yet. But I love this because this shows me very clearly what products were bought by which customers. So if I want to look at some of my top selling products and see the customers who bought them and see the customers who didn't buy them, now I can use this for marketing and send emails to a client and say, hey, customers who bought what you bought also bought these other products. It's a great way to sort of cross-sell products among my existing customers. Another thing we can do with this is flip it, and I want to see by customer what products each customer bought. Right? So in a click, I can literally flip that around.
Hey, Seth, real quickly, can you go to File at the top there?
Mm-hmm.
Go to Options.
Oh, you're showing me where the default is?
Formulas, or Data, I mean. Edit Default Layout.
Oh, look at that. Nice. Did you know this, or did you just find this?
I just looked it up.
Nice. Nice. Thank you. All right, so this is it. So again, I love the fact that I can quickly flip this around and see by customer within that by product, or by product within that by customer. See, the problem with QuickBooks or any other accounting software is reporting is it's linear. It can only show me a single set of rows and columns. I can't put subtotaled rows like this in a report to get this kind of data. And it's really valuable data, right? Clickety, clickety, click. Let's do another quick pivot table. That'll be interesting. I don't know if some of you saw I was doing this, playing around while Matthew was talking before. But another thing I can do is I can put transaction types here, which could be interesting to look at, right? Drop my amounts in. I don't know why you might or might not want to do this, but because now that I have this, I'm trying to think, what did I do? All right, let me get out of transaction type here for a minute. So we just have the total value there. I want to do names, right? And let's look at transaction types within the names. And now I can go in here and I can start filtering. Right? Another thing I could do, I don't have time to do it now, but with this dump, what I could do is export another table where I can pull into this table the type of name, so whether this is a vendor or a customer, right? Because then I can go into a pivot table like this and filter it for I can filter it for the name type and filter it for only vendors or for only customers, right? The filters here are really powerful, as you can see. In terms of what I can do, it's just like filters in a table where I can really chisel it down to very specific things, right? One thing I noticed that was really cool, that Matthew, you probably knew this, I just never paid attention to it before. But I was looking for specific names in a list in a filter like this. So I said, all right, I want to just see books by Bessie to begin with, right? But then I want to kind of incrementally add names back to the filter. Initially, if I just come in here and click Amy's Bird Sanctuary, I guess in this case it will keep the other. There was a case where it wasn't keeping them, but there was an option to add it to the current filter. I guess here it's just working that way anyway.
Perhaps that's a filter in the pivot table.
Maybe it's when you put something in this filters box. That could be. That most certainly could be. Let's clear this. But I was doing this with my client the other day to quickly get at, because I had a specific list of names we knew we needed the 1099s for, and this was that company we had retired, and I didn't want to go to the trouble of bringing back the QBO file, but I had the general ledger, so I cut up a report like this where I was basically able to see very clearly. It showed what went in and out of accounts payable. It showed how much went to the expense account, but most importantly, because 1099s are cash basis, I couldn't do it based on just the expense. I had to add up. But also you can see very clearly in a report like this, by the way, how much was paid out of a bank account versus, let's say, how much was paid out of bill.com. So because of the 1099K thing, I could make sure that I'm only 1099ing them for what was paid out of the bank account, right? Because I could see the payment source here in this pivot table. So in like half an hour, I was able to cut the data up and then go into track 1099. And just at that point, I had, like I said, about a handful of names to do it for. And I was able to quickly just manually enter the data to get the 1099s done for him. So the whole thing took me an hour to do. And by the way, I billed him $250 to do it.
Got to run, everyone. See ya.
I got to run too.
We also use it as a way to match up like existing POs to bills in case they didn't link them. Anytime we have to clean up like the AP side of a business, we'll use a pivot table to get the stuff close to each other, and it usually helps match things up.
Right. So like here, this is what I did. We have the name, and then within that I put the account. Right. So now I can see for Amy's Bird Sanctuary, these are all income because she's a customer. By the way, another really cool thing, if I right-click where the little, what do you call that? The little zipper thing is, right? If you right-click this, I use this a lot. Expand and collapse, and then just collapse entire field. Makes it easy for me to kind of focus and look for what I'm specifically looking for, and then I can expand just the things I want to look at. See, here's a great example of what I was able to do. This person is evidently an attorney. We can see that $75 went out of the checking account and also went to the legal and professional fees account, right? But if this person had also been paid by credit card, that would show up here on a separate line item, right? There's PG&E. Again, perfect example, right? We paid $114.09 out of the checking account. Some of it went through accounts payable. Obviously, the rest of it was direct out of the account. If I take the total expense minus the accounts payable, it's probably going to equal that. Let's test my theory. Total expense minus what went through the payables is what went directly out of the checking account. Boom, $114.09. So again, this is just really cool data. And as you saw, if the general ledger is not too huge, and that's why when you normally do it, you probably want to do it just for like the current year, just for 1 year, because it'll crash Chrome if you try and do a report that's too big like that. But a way to get it for sure is to do the backup thing, right? So if you export data, you can just say, okay, it's a backup, continue. And then you tell it everything you want. The main thing you want is the general ledger, and click export. Boom, you've got the whole general ledger. And if it's too big, it'll tell you, it'll try it and tell you, so you can change this and say just do like last year. So also a very quick way to extract the data from QuickBooks Online to start cutting up something like what I've just shown you.
When did they put that in?
I don't know, but I was struggling last year, at the beginning of this year, with a lot of year-end stuff because I was trying to run general ledger reports for the entire year, and I have a lot of clients with a lot of history, and it kept crashing Chrome. I couldn't get it to run, and then I noticed the export data thing, and I'm like, what's this? I assumed it was just to export it, maybe to use and to convert back to QuickBooks Desktop, but when I saw these options, I was like, oh, holy crap, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So try it. I did run into a couple of cases, though, where even that, it said the general ledger report was too big to export. I was trying to do multiple years, but when I did it just for 1 year at a time, it worked every time, even with clients that had big files. So,
thank you, Seth.
Thank you. And I will catch you on the flip side. I'll get the recording of this up at some point tomorrow. And for those who aren't already members, this is what we do in 97 and Up, is we play with stuff like this, and we just learn everything we can learn about how to get things done faster, more efficiently, and with greater value.
As well as if there's other topics that people have or questions they want to bring, you always take the time to try to help answer those, and you're always open to talking about different topics as well. So it's a great group.
I do. Yep. There's no dumb questions. I'll answer them all. If I've, like I like to say, if I've had the experience, you're welcome to it.
Yep.
All right. I will see you all around. Don't forget Gina's hangout later today, 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 Eastern. Just go to SBAA Advisors on Facebook. Join a group. Join a thing. I can never do it because I'm never around at that hour on a Friday. But
I'll be there.
if I could, I would. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.